So have a look at the gauge pod. That is bespoke design. It's done for Miata with love, as you can see. This one is, you can get it in left hand or right hand drive configurations. It replaces the center speaker on the dashboard, so right in the center. And obviously, like I said, you can have it right hand drive or left hand drive. Obviously you have to have a different one. This is the right hand drive example. It's all 3D printed, and then I believe it's all sanded and smoothed out and then painted. Here's a nice little piece. Much more OEM than some of those sort of pillar pods and that kind of stuff. That's not really my scene. So yeah, wanted to get one of these. So yeah, fantastic. You can purchase them through eBay. So have a look on there. Looks great. Comes in this nice little pouch, all finished off, ready to go together. Looks good. These are the gauges that I'm going to use. I'll put up some details. I thought I'd got the measurements and things right for these particular pods, but I've got ones that currently I think they're longer than advised. I'll put up the details at the bottom of the length that's advised. So what I'm finding is they're, as you can see, not being held in. So you can still, I can still get the wires behind. They're just little connecting wires with little connectors like this. So I have put them in and tried it, and then when you're running two to power it, there's a bridging cable. So I've got to try and think of ways to hold them in. One of them I'm thinking is maybe drilling a little hole there, putting a self tapper in and just screwing it up, and then it won't move. I think that'll probably be fine. If that doesn't work, I'll have to come up with some another idea. So it's not anything wrong with the pod. It's I didn't follow the instructions of the depth of gauge that you need, because I think if you got a shallow one, it would push back in and the taper would hold it, whereas I can't get in far enough, so mine's always loose. So like I said, I think a little screw or something that would just pinch it up. Would be absolutely fine. So the first job for doing your boost gauge is, one of the first jobs is to try and get this speaker grill out, which I'm going to fail dismally. So basically you just got to get down the side of a screwdriver or something and prise that out. Once you've removed the two screws that hold the center speaker on, it's just a single plug, little clip there, pop that off, tuck the wire back down, and then that's got it out of the way, ready for your boost gauge pod. So for access to get the cables through inside the car, taking the glove box out, there's a little cord with a pin on it. You just slide it out the edge of the glove box, squeeze the two sides of the glove box together, that pushes the glove box down, and then it's literally pushed onto these clips here, and that's the glove box removed. Gives you a lot more extra room. And then what I've got to do is feed the three wires through that I need for the gauge power, illumination, and other feeds and things. So let's get that sorted. So there was a plastic panel here. There was one clip going into here. I've taken the sill piece off. That gave me access here. And then there was a clip here. Just got a screwdriver in behind, pinged the plastic, took that off. And this is your sort of auxiliary type fuse board, fuse box. And this is where we're going to plug in for our power. And I'll show you as we go. So what I did to feed the wires through is I got the three new wires, gaffer tape them together. I pushed them up through the side bit with this other main loom piece that brought them up to here. Obviously this isn't neat yet. And then obviously I had to get them through up to the top of the dash. So what I did is I got a bit of a stiffer piece of wire. I just kept threading it into the corner there. Seemed to go nicely on its own. It popped out there. I then gaffer taped or whatever my new wires to that, pulled the wire back through, and that's pulled through my three new wires that I'm going to use. So now I'm just going to use some cable ties and things and attach it up up here and do it neatly, and then I've got to sort the fuse box side of things. So obviously this is the fly lead that goes into the back of the gauge, and the fly lead comes with all the cables to do, and then I need to connect them to the ones I've just threaded through. I'm just going to use these crush type connectors, but maybe a nice 4-way plug would be nicer, but that's what I'm going to use. So that's the fly lead from the gauge, now all crimped into the leads that I fed through. So I'm going to pull that back through, neaten it up with inside the glove box down there, and then sort out the other end. So on the fuse box on the passenger side of the car, you've got different, obviously the main fuses that are going down here, and number 2 is auxiliary power. So basically that's going to turn on when the ignition goes. So what we're using is we've taken out number 2 fuse, and then we've got a piggyback lead. So this will go into the fuse where the old fuse was. The bottom fuse is the fuse that came out, and then on the top is a small 2-amp fuse that's going to this fly lead that's then connecting to our boost gauge there. So that's the first one. Well, you can hear the birds chirping. That's the first one we've put in, which is the switched into the auxiliary. Then if we have a look at the plate again, what we're going to go for the permanent is audio, because that always has a clock on and things like that, so it does have a permanent feed. So we're going to go for that one. Again, we're going to use a little piggybacker, put that one in, and then we've got one more which is illumination, which is up there. So illumination is going to be the one, hopefully, that when we turn the lights on mine, it will increase the brightness of the gauges. So that's the plan. So these are all the ones I've done. So I piggybacked. So the top one is auxiliary power, the second one is illumination, and then audio is at the bottom, so tuck that up in there. The only one we've got left now is an earth. So just up from that panel inside the glove box, what I found was this metal tab coming off the chassis. Didn't have a bolt in it. I think it's an M6 bolt, and all I've done is I put a ring on the end of the earth, secured it there nice and strong, and that should be all the wiring done. So once you've done all your electrics, you've got your panel back on, it nicely fits in like that. You've got your panel cover, and it's all hidden away. So I've got my, it's not installed, it's just press fitted. Just want to see if we've got all the electrics right. So I'm going to go on to auxiliary. They all light up, and then if I click the lights on, they dim. So that's the illumination bit. They dim into another color. You can change all these colors on these ones, but no, so that's all the electrics all hooked up nicely. So doing a little bit of work on the gauge pod. As I've stated before, I've got longer gauges than were recommended, so unfortunately they're not sticking in. I tried an O-ring on the back, that doesn't work. So 2 things I want to do. So one is to change the settings on it is this button, and what I'm thinking of doing is self-tapping a screw into here to hold this in place. So the only time I'd be able to get this out would be if I literally lift it out of the dash, undo the screw, take the pod out, play around with the setting, put it back in, blah blah blah. But the problem is, I'm guessing that this will reset itself every time you disconnect the battery, and you know that happens quite often when you're working on a car. So what I'm thinking is to put a hole in the back of the gauge pod that I can put something like a Allen key through and activate that button while it's still in situ in the car. So that's one thing, and I've got to find out where the relationship is to mark that hole and get that done. And then the other one is to obviously do this self-tapper side of things as well. So that's what I'm working on. I just marked the center line of the gauge, and I've marked where the clicker is, and now I've got to find the mark on here. So further work on the gauges. So as you've seen in the videos before, I've got a sensor down there for my oil pressure. So I've plugged that in. I've brought the cable up, it's the one behind there. And also here is the sensor for my vac line. So I'm taking the vac source from where the purge used to be, 4mm hose, and I'm going to take that into my sensor there. So that's for the boost gauge. So both of those wires have come down here. I pondered for ages about how to get through the firewall, etc. And I had looked at this, but then someone mentioned it again. There, and there, if I get the light in, that is your cable for the bonnet release. There's a little grommet there. I've pushed both of my cables through there. One of them is going to be long enough, which is this one. Hopefully that's going to be long enough to go all the way down in there, up the dashboard to the center. The oil is not going to be long enough, unfortunately. So we're in the midst of, I pulled the stereo forward so I could get, I was trying to feed a wire down here and it was just getting lost. So I was able to get my hand in, feed a wire in there, get a wire here, feed it down the back, and now I've got this black wire that basically I can attach all the other wires to and then pull it through, and that will get it through. So this one, which is the boost gauge, I'm hoping is long enough to go all the way up. This one is not going to be long enough to go up, so I'm going to have to make an extension. You could buy nice plugs and things to do that. I have to admit I'm going to use the red crimpy horrible things, so please do a better job than I am. I've got some leftover 1mm lead, so that one's a 2 cable, this one's a 3 cable. I've got some leftover wire from when I was doing the sensors. 2 of them are the same color, so I've put a bit of heat wrap on there so I can tell which one that is. I'm going to connect that to that, then to the black, and then pull that through, and then I'll do this joint down here where it's easier. So have a look at the gauges. Hopefully this is going to be the last time it all goes together. So this is the lovely gauge pod that's made for Miata with love. Link will be in the description. I've done it slightly differently, as I stated before. My mistake, got 2 longer gauges, fine. I've created these 2 screws, basically going to act as like a grub screw, so I'm going to screw those up and hold it. My gauges have all the settings on this knob, so it changes dimness, brightness, colors, all that type of stuff. And I didn't want to have to keep taking it out to change that, so I've got 2 holes in the back of my pod so I can access those settings while it's all in the car. So I've extended the wiring for one of them. You can see that there, so that's all extended. I've got my power, my 2 gauges. So let's have a look at that. So thankfully they are color coded. The blue one here is going into my boost gauge. Yep. Black one is going into my oil pressure. And then I've got the power lead. Doesn't really matter which one I go into, but let's take it into the one I've got in my hand, which is oil pressure. Great. Feed them back in. Try and line them up straight. So those are my gauges in. I'm going to push the wiring back down into the hole. I'm going to push my geese pod in. Looking good. Good line of sight. Wicked.